What is up, Cal fans? Welcome back to another episode of the California Golden Bearcast, a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. We are here to talk about Virginia Tech. My name is Andy. Alongside me is Rob. We're going to start off with the Bear Essentials today, and we're going to hear from our coach, J-Dubs. This is fresh off the presser, as this was his 10/28 media availability.
What we can help them is by continuing to rep technique and angles and ultimately tackling. There is certainly technique involved in tackling. Athleticism is a part of tackling. You have to be a good athlete, because if a person's not a good athlete, you could teach them all the drills and all the technique you want, they're not going to be a very good tackler. A lot of tackling has to do with how badly you want to get the guy on the ground. And so I've just seen time and time again, there's technique, there's athletic ability, which is a big part, and then the want to or pride in getting the guy on the ground is critically important. So we're going to continue to drill that. We're going to keep working tackling. We worked it again today. We're going to work it again tomorrow. We're going to work it again the day after that and the day after that until we get to the game and we have more opportunities to tackle again. So when the ball carrier has the ball, that we find a way to get him on the ground.
Sheesh. He got more and more angry as he was answering that.
I feel like I know exactly what play he's talking about, too.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely the overtime one,
it's
right?
the overtime and
first overtime.
Yeah, the Hezekiah Masses, shoulder check, shoulder check.
Yeah. That's not the first time that we've seen Masses, back out of a tackling opportunity.
Yeah.
In the red zone. I think he did that against UNC.
Yeah. But I think for the UNC one, you can kind of make the case of circumstances and the angle and whatnot. But then for the Virginia Tech one, the more you watch the replay, the more egregious it is.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've watched it 3 or 4 times at this point.
And it's you can tell the effort's not there. Cam Sidney is the only one that's literally trying to get him to the ground. And
Cam's just too small.
Yeah, and Cam's just too small. And then the second thing was I get what Cam was trying to do because he was trying to he was doing the lean back thing where he bear hugs him and leans back so that he can't get into the end zone, and was hoping one of his teammates would get there in time to kind of help push the center of gravity backwards. But I think in hindsight he probably just should have just gone straight for the tackle so he just goes down. But I get in the moment he knows where he is, which is within 5 yards of the goal line. So he is trying to make sure, as much as he possibly can, deter him from getting into the end zone. But none of his teammates could get there in time. So it was, but valiant effort from Cam on that play. But there were a couple of players where, you gotta question there. What are you doing there?
I think it's. I don't think it would have mattered as we're talking about Cam. It's cool. They got the first down anyways. They're going to score there. So, but you never know. I just don't think ultimately that, I don't think from that position, given that they could run the ball against us seemingly the entire fourth quarter at will, that we were going to somehow hold up at 1st and goal from the 4. But you do really never know. And I think any coach would say, well, give me the chance at 1st and goal from the 4, rather than just assuming that it's guaranteed to not work.
Case in point is our Boston College game, right?
Yeah.
It's just as long as you have the opportunity to get a stop, you just never know when the ball is snapped.
What a fun game for you to bring up, Rob.
I'm just saying that there's similarities in the whole you're playing the game theory and you're playing the butterfly effect stuff. So the opposite side of them guaranteeing a score is giving them an example of where we actually still got the stop despite what we thought was going to happen.
Good point. Shades of Mikey Mo. Can't forget it. Okay, well, let's flip back to the intro for today, what we're going to go through, the key storylines going into Virginia Tech was, would the team take advantage of what I called a generous 5-2 record? There weren't really any program, like, I didn't think there was big program news going into this one other than what I put as Wilcox continuing to sort of be in a prove it moment and needing to follow through on that. And then ultimately, I did want to take a second, Rob, because you were the MVP of the day, holding down a seat by a fire pit at Headlands for me. But just to shout out how cool that scene was at Headlands Brewing. I know you were there the night before. You want to take us through a couple minutes of what that experience was like?
Yeah, I mean, we just shout out to Joel, who, got in touch with us when we first started doing these watch parties at Headlands, but also invited us to the grand opening party that happened there Thursday night. Really great experience. The band was there. Rich Lyons was there. Just super cool. And then Friday night for the game, great showing once again. I think at this point, like, if you're upset about the team and the direction it's going, you're upset with it, but that shouldn't deter you from enjoying the community aspect of us gathering around Cal football, and that's kind of been what the case has been with these away game watch parties. So, like, it's been a great crowd. Andy, you can attest to that. Like, the back patio was packed. Inside the Headlands was also packed. And all the seats were taken. The fire pits were on. Everyone had a beer. Everyone had some food. We were all just hanging out, laughing, crying, stressed, exhilarated, whatever adjective you want to describe it. That was pretty much all of us there. And I think we all had outside of the end to the game and the result, I think all of us still had a good experience.
Yeah, it was a great time. The crying must have been my daughter, right? I mean, can't imagine anybody else.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was exhausted.
Oh my gosh. What a time. What a time. All right, well, let's get into the game a little bit. And I think that's a good transition because I got some glorious feedback from my friends, which was that last week I did a great job of creating an uplifting podcast. So in the midst of that very facetious feedback, I thought maybe we would go with staying positive in the midst of chaos. So I'm going to give you 3 sort of radiating positivity takes, and I would love to hear if you have any, Rob. But
sure.
I thought, I mean, look, I think Cade's getting maybe a bit of a bad rap this year, a little bit. Like, I've seen, some post-game articles that are even about this game that said it was like a bounce back game. I just thought it was Cade's best first half. Like, you could call it the first half of the, performance or the whole game performance. But ultimately, I thought Cade had his best game of the season. I think he had a sack. He was just all over the field, and you just love to see that.
I think the thing with Cade is, like, statistically, he definitely has taken a step back this year. But, like, I'd have to honestly go back and watch the film and just watch him him specifically to kind of see, is it a scheme thing? Are they asking him to do different things from last year and he hasn't just adjusted? And I mean, there are moments where he takes a bad angle on tackles. That's evident. But I think in this one, like, his propensity to, like, find and end plays, like, there was that one where we flushed drones out of the pocket to the left, and I think one of the defensive ends couldn't get to him, but slightly trips him up a little bit, but he still maintains his balance. And so Drones is running, and then Cade comes in off the edge and cleans up the tackle early on in the game. And I think that's when he's at his best and running downhill. So yeah, I mean, maybe we see him revert back to that this year instead of doing a lot more of the other jobs and just kind of simplifying his role in the defense for him. But yeah, I think the talent's still there. It's just a matter of consistency week to week which that for sure hasn't been there this year.
I also wonder, I mean, he lost a co-conspirator, if you will, in Teddy Buchanan to the NFL. So how much of that is it? And it's not like Farrelly's been, it's just not a shot against Farrelly. It's just sort of like you lost an NFL level player who, you know, while Roquan Smith has been out with the Ravens, was starting at linebacker in the league this year. And how much of that is, you know, a reflection of circumstance, or is it a reflection of Cade as a player? I mean, if you look at his stat line, 19 total tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 tackles for loss. Like, that's an outrageously good game.
Yeah, I mean, the tackle numbers, like our defense as a, like stylistically, our inside linebackers are always going to have the best stats. Like, it's just...
Wow, you're putting the asterisk on it, huh?
Yeah, no, I'm not putting an asterisk on it. I'm just saying, like, that's just like, you know, you look at, because we talk about the inside linebackers that Wilcox has cultivated through this system that he's created over the last however many years. And, like, you look at all of the statistics, and usually our leading tacklers are our inside linebackers. And so, like, the defense is set so it funnels tackles to the inside linebackers. But, like, I think we talked about this either last week or the week before, or either that or I had this conversation with someone else. But I do wonder if it's a thing of where they're asking Cade to do a different job last year or this year compared to the last couple years. And if they're asking him to do something else, and that's where his adjustment period has come this year. Because, you know, the loss of Teddy is huge. I wonder if you're giving Cade what Teddy did last year, and you're asking Luke Farrelly to do what Cade did last year, and that's where maybe some of the inconsistencies have come from. But once again, that's something I'm going to have to look at the tape to kind of figure out.
I mean, it's also, you could also look at from a coaching perspective, right? He lost not only his positional coach, but also the defensive coordinator in Sermon. So it, you know, that we could be seeing that too. And it's like, I think our 2 D coordinators are split between DBs and D line, right? In their experience. So,
or edge.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, look, it was meant to be a positive note, but I appreciate that regardless. And it's always good to take into account sort of advanced stats and not just look at the bottom line. But I'm going to continue on. I thought Kendrick Raphael. So there was a couple of things on rewatch that was interesting. Obviously, it's like his best. I thought it was his best game rushing the ball, even though we had, you know, if you look at the shout out right for California, the Rock Fight article, you know, one of the worst run blocking games and pass blocking for that matter that we've had in the Wilcox era. Yep. But I thought Raphael did as well as anyone could have expected given the circumstance. And it was also interesting. It felt like we engaged with Raphael more as a pass catcher in this game than I can remember in my mind. I don't know if that's like statistically correct, but it felt like when I was watching it. And that's also another interesting point to talk about later, where I felt like DeJesus had 7 receptions for like 77 yards in the first half, and he had like 1 reception for, 10 yards in the second half. And I kind of felt like we might have gone to Kendrick as a receiver over DeJesus. And obviously that's easy to look back in hindsight, but yeah, we used him a lot more out of the pass game. I thought he did a good job. And it's like, I don't know. It's tough to say because like rushing is still such an obvious pain point for this entire offense. So it's hard to really draw like that much enthusiasm from it. But in sort of a world in which, you know, you're trying to find the positive lines, I think it is nice that he's sort of established himself as RB1.
Yeah, the what if for me for this game, if we're going to look at the run game, is what if we had more running backs? Because we knew High wasn't playing, we knew LJ Johnson wasn't playing this game. So like by default, like Kendrick was going to get not only the bulk of the touches, but any of the passing downs where we needed him to catch passes, like we were going to have to throw to him. And I do wonder in the second half if we threw more to him instead of De Jesus, because De Jesus had such a good first half. Not that we wanted to go away from De Jesus, but
Yep.
they realized that's our only like passing option, like in that little short to intermediate area.
Yep.
So if we're not, if they, I think they just adapted and they were like, if we clamp him down, they're going to have to throw to other guys. We'll let other guys beat us, but we're going to stop De Jesus from just running all over us. And that's kind of what they did. And then our offense kind of clamped down for the entirety of the second half.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Really good point. That's like one of the hardest things to understand. Is it an adjustment or is it us going away from it? And
yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So once again, we're not in those meetings, right? Or like in those halftime adjustments. So it's like, did we go away from it? Did they force us to go away from it? Like, we as fans, I think, would be just as pissed if we knew that they had adapted to it and yet we were forcing the ball in there.
Yep.
So that's just we can't have it both ways.
Can't have your cake and eat it too sometimes.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Well, my last one was that, look, Jaren is incredible.
Mhm.
I think he gets a lot of praise and it's so deserving, but I really do feel like that this game, the only reason why we tied this game was like his sheer will and competitiveness to win. It felt like it came down to that final drive. And yes, did we get an incredibly generous call on the fourth down in regards to roughing the passer? But that throw that he made to Trond was legit perfect.
Mhm.
By like inches.
There was like 3 passes that were perfect and they were just not caught.
He just doesn't have, he just seems like one of those guys that hates losing. And if you give him a shot, we're still in any game. And we haven't always had that. Like we've had even times with Fernando. And look, Fernando's been getting tons of hype. So like we can put a little, we can rain on his parade a little bit. But like there were times with Fernando when it felt like if we got, behind, like we wouldn't be able to, pull out other than the big game, right? Like 90-yard drives, go get 7.
Yeah.
It just really felt like with Jaren at this age, I think Fernando now it's different, and even last year it's different. But at this age, see a freshman quarterback basically be like, "Yep, game's on the line. You have to drive down the entire field and get us a touchdown in order to tie it," and he does. It's unreal.
Yeah, I mean the throws he makes are definitely like, and one thing I will say, like, remember what we talked about last week, and I was like, we got to take the negatives with the negatives and the positives with positives, and like one of the negatives was like we were hitting that wall with Jaren as a freshman, and he was making mistakes that a true freshman quarterback was going to make, and we were going to have to live with those. There were a couple more moments in this game, but I think those moments were a lot fewer this game than they were evident or as evident in the UNC and the Duke game. I think he made a lot better decisions here. There were a couple where it's like you can't throw that ball. Like you just have to go down with it, or like just throw the ball away. Like stop trying to make a play here. But a lot of those instances were definitely far and few between in this one compared to the last few. So you have to kind of toss that up to coaching. You kind of have to toss that up to development, and also just his experience of watching his own film and realizing like I have to mentally like rein in some of those decisions and opt to just live to fight another day.
Yeah. There's also teams that we have watched where if you go down 10 or you go down 14 at Boston College and we're like, well, that's it, right? It's like, it's but it's very much not that. I think a lot of his will to win and his will to be competitive, it like shines through in our offense. It just wish there was a little bit more consistency with it, especially in this game where it felt like after the first half, it's like, oh, wow, we might even, without, hey, if it's not for two balls that hit receivers in the hands that get dropped, it's like I was looking at that game being like, all right, like you're almost at the point where you're like starting to talk about, hey, one touchdown could kind of put this thing away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we started off 10-0, and it was, looking rather demoralizing, and then completely turned around.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I told you, right, when you came in a little late. I was like, you got to watch the first drive, because you came in and we had gotten past that first drive or two, and that's where like the emotions were down because the offense looked terrible. The defense also didn't look great, but then we picked it up, and we kind of turned it around. We didn't just roll over and die, and the guys fought pretty much the entire game up until the last minute. And so I think that was super cool to see. I think this type of game is also a very good learning experience for a young quarterback, to be in overtime in that type of setting in an away game, and still have the posture and just the poise to be able to make plays down the field, really embracing the moment but not being stressed because of the moment, and being anxious because of the moment, and still being able to make the throws that we all know he can make.
I have an interesting question for you, Rob, but I have to remember what that question was. So I think that like if we go high level here for a second,
yeah,
is something you said around the development of Jaren, and you think that the NIL portal era, God, I shouldn't even loop those together. Just like the transfer portal era and how easy it is to now move in college football, NIL we can leave to the side, has taken away our patience. In other words, would we be giving a longer leash to the entire regime here if we were guaranteed to have Jaren until his junior year?
Probably not, because I feel like, let's see.
Because like part of me wonders though.
Yeah,
It's like it's the risk here is almost that the worst case scenario is basically a repeat of last offseason where your quarterback leaves. But if you didn't have that, where it was like you only get one transfer and it's a hardship transfer, do you look at this and say, well, yeah, like we had an opportunity to win 8 or 9 games, but at least we're guaranteed to see Jaren play for the next 2 or 3 years. The same way, I mean, we did that with Goff, right? The first year with Goff, we were 1-11, but everyone was like, well, we have our quarterback for the next 2 or 3 years. Different scenario, first year coach, like very, very different scenario. But I'm quite curious to get your take.
No, I mean, because I mean, I'm looking back at the Sunny years, right? And like that's going to be the best comp here. Just because, like, let's say for the sake of the argument, Jared leaves after 3 years, right? And that last year of Sonny, we brought in Davis Webb. If we had not played Davis Webb, and let's say we had played, who else was a freshman on that? Who was a young quarterback on that roster? Garbers, I think, was a freshman on that roster. I think Bowers. No, Bowers was not Garbers, because Garbers came in the year after. He was in that recruiting class. He was in the 2016 recruiting class. So, yeah, like Bowers is there, right? Like if we had played Ross Bowers, and let's say he looked, like he did that first year under Wilcox, which was pretty good, like not great, but it was something we looked at and we could build off of that. Would we have been okay, like wanting to keep Sonny here for a few more years? I don't know. I mean, it's like it's compounded because Wilcox has been here for 9 years, right?
Yeah.
And instead of just 4 years. So maybe people are at the point of like I mean, I can make the argument, and these are a couple of arguments you can make, but one of them is you can be like, well, quarterbacks come and go, and that's the beauty of college football, is that eras and generations constantly change, because you have like the 4 to 5 year turnovers. So if another coach comes, if you're getting rid of the coach, then like, you're tossing it up to maybe the next coach brings in another generational quarterback. And also like, we can also be real here. Like Jaren's great and we think he's going to be really good, but like it could also be that he doesn't turn out good and that he flames out, so there's no full guarantees of anything. So I don't know if necessarily just because you have a single player that looks generational deems it like the Band-Aid for all if you're evaluating whether to move on from a head coach or not.
Yeah. It is an interesting time and place sort of thought experiment.
It is. It definitely is.
I do think that if you think about like 2015, let's say like use the USC, for example, if at that time you have a down year, a lot of people I think would have said, well, we have a 5-star quarterback coming in. Like there was that narrative of like, yeah, it was a down year for us, but we have a 5-star stud quarterback that was a true freshman redshirting that's going to take over for the next 3 years, a la Sam Darnold, what have you. And I think now it's not viewed the same way. You get that talent through the portal, but it doesn't feel as secure to me, where you can say, yeah, it was a down year. Or like a Brian Kelly could say, oh, yeah, it was a down year for LSU this year, but I have a 5-star quarterback that's going to change this program for the next 3 years and will help us win a national title. But I think if in this era, it's like, so what have you done for me lately, that it almost just doesn't even matter, because like that's not a guaranteed commodity. Therefore, everyone just looks at these things as like, well, yeah, to your point, it's like, well, the new guy can just go and bring in a new quarterback through the portal who might just be better or just as good as this freshman could be.
Yeah, that's the big thing, and that's like the toughest part about all of this. Like, I think for that case in point, like you look at Washington State, right?
Yeah.
Rolo has that exit, and you're like, what is anything good gonna happen here? They hired Dickert to maintain continuity, but then they hired Eric Morris, who brings in Cam Ward, and they were lamenting the loss of Jaden DeLora to Arizona, but they got just as good, if not a better, of a quarterback for the however many years he was at Washington State. So, like it's there's no guarantees of anything. Particularly in college sports, because the variance is just so high, and the sheer number of players that are involved in movement and coaches that are involved in movement are so high that like you can't unequivocally say that this is going to happen or that is going to happen or this player is going to pan out or this, and so on. So like, it's definitely an interesting time. It's like, I know we put the NIL conversation aside to this, but it definitely is like, I wouldn't say like they're one of the same or two sides of the same coin, but it is a Venn diagram where there is a gray area of overlap between the two things. Yep. And like you just have to take that into account now, as the conversation with Ron that you and I had about, recruiting conversations. It just happens all the time. So like, I don't think you can say like, so to tie this all back to Cal, like, and to look peer into the future maybe a little bit. And people are like, why would Jaren stay? And it's like, well, I think if you're Jaren and you're in that family and, you've seen, you also, if you didn't trust this staff, why would you come back here after you went to Oregon? Like you would have gone elsewhere. And so if you're trusting this staff, and let's say the staff is retained, then you're trusting them to go out and get better weapons for you. And also, you have to understand the tape of you is now out there, that weapons are going to want to come and play with you. And so that goes hand in hand. Like, it's not just about the Cal side. It's just as much about the Jaren side as it is about the Cal side. So when people say like, why would any like wide receiver want to come play for this offense or whatever? Well, if Jaren's here, then they're going to want to come and play with Jaren in this. Like, it's not like, it's not like the Sunny years, where we were such a air raid pass heavy offense outside of, that Jared's year with Lasco and, just what he did from a run game perspective. But we never had like a power rushing offense or like a running back heavy. So our running back recruiting wasn't the greatest during that time. But we still got the guys in because they wanted to play with Jared, right? So I think we're going to see some of that if everything's maintained going into this offseason, but that's still 2 months away. So we'll worry about that when we get there.
Yes, we will. Well, what do you think? We did the positive. Do you want to transition to some non-positive items?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the notes I have here aren't really like negative per se, but just more like rational, cold, hard facts about where we are as a team. So some of the advanced stats from the Right for Cal team that they're working on this, so I'll kind of spoil some of their stuff, but they were looking at some charts and graphs of red zone EPA, right? So anything within 20 yards, and I believe this was from who put this up? Was it? I think it was Lindsay. Lindsay put this up, and so she was doing red zone stuff, and it's like the offense, our red zone EPA sits around 0, so it's like it's net neutral. Where we don't go negative, but we also kind of don't go positive when we're in the red zone. But teams along that same line, on average, is Virginia, LSU, Nebraska, South Carolina, and Auburn. Defensively, we sit at plus 1.5 yards EPA. That means we're pushing them back, right? 1.5. They're the other teams that are in that range along that line is Texas Tech, Texas, Virginia, Vandy, and Iowa. So in a weird way, this Virginia game that we have coming up, and this is just a spoiler for, for the game this week, we actually match up kind of weirdly well with this Virginia team.
But of course.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird.
Virginia, that's what and it's so funny you said that, but I have that in the notes like here of what's ahead.
Yeah.
They're not good. I would be as mad as a Virginia fan as I was with us at 5-2. I'm like, they just seemingly get so lucky. Wilcox is nice enough today in his presser to say they make plays at the right time, but no. I mean, we watched that game against UNC. They're not good. They just seemingly get away with it. And it was like an inch difference between UNC converting that 2-point play and not. I don't know. I do think this is a very, very winnable game.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised at all if we ended up. I actually feel better about winning this game than I did against Virginia Tech. I don't know why that is.
It's probably because we're at home and we're not playing at Lane Stadium.
Well, and it's a coach that hasn't been fired yet.
Yeah, that too. So I have a thing for you, but like regarding that. But I just want to get over my last point really quickly, and then we can go back to this conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
The last point for me is that the drops by the wide receivers and the skill position players, I don't think is a concern anymore. And what I mean by that is that it's not a concern because it's not adjustable anymore. Like, we know what we have in that room now. Well, at least the ones that play. We don't know what we have from the ones that don't play. But it's no longer something we can control for the season. Like, it's something that we're just going to have to live with. But Wilcox's comments, I think, after the game was something to the extent of, like, we're going to look at all avenues to see if they can give us something, which is a far cry difference from what he was saying, I think, a week or two ago, where he was like, every snap is kind of earned. So I think he does, judging from that, I think we can allude to maybe some other skill position players maybe getting more burned. But at the same time, if you want to look at the macro version of why he said that, it's probably because he's starting to feel the frustration and the the heat a little bit of not being able to make adjustments or get some more production out of that room.
Yeah. I mean, those are game-changing plays.
Mhm.
Like the 2 drops, there were more than that.
Yeah.
But the 2 that you don't convert on in the end zone, yeah, they're game-changing plays. You're talking about a win versus a loss. And we play low-margin football for whatever reason. So we have to have those. I don't know. I can't understand why we haven't seen more wide receivers, but other than what we always talk about, which is practice. But I don't know. It's tougher in that specific scenario. Everyone always loves a backup quarterback, but the thing with a wide receiver is all it takes is a couple of good plays, and then some people are just gamers.
Yep.
You don't always see it in practice.
Yep.
Okay. One more thing. We can adjust back if you want. So this is my perspective, but did you feel like the defense was gassed, and that's why? Because at the beginning of the game, after reading Nick's article, which I thought was great, you could tell that at least Cade was responsible for making sure that if drones ran, there was someone that was going to prevent him from getting a big gain, and it seemingly worked.
Yeah.
So I saw them do the zone read, and every time it seemed like Cade was there, disrupting the play enough where it wasn't a huge gain. And then, for whatever reason, in the second half, it did not. That was not there.
Yeah.
So is that us not adjusting? Is that us getting tired? What do you think happened there?
My take, and I once again, I only watch bits and pieces just to gain my insight back on this game. I would need to go back and do a full rewatch, and which I think is valid. But from some of the things I was seeing from the Right for Cal guys and such was that the integrity of the edges for when they were running the read options crumbled towards the end, and that's what gave that up. If your edges on a zone read cannot crash hard because you're trying to delay the quarterback's decision to hand off or to keep as long as possible in the backfield.
Right.
So from the direction that he's running, so that the defensive line and the linebackers have enough time to get into the backfield. So you shouldn't crash down, because the moment you crash down as a defensive end, that's the read on a zone read, right? The quarterback's just reading the edge. If he crashes down, then you're pulling and you're running around him. If he doesn't crash down, then you're handing off to the running back. But it's all about maintaining the edge properly and forcing them to delay their decision as much as possible. The issue was that our edges were crashing down too hard, particularly in the game. And that's what just led to drones just keeping the ball and running around the edge. And then on top of that, our outside linebackers, which are kind of like our edges, right? They don't have the speed to keep up with a guy like that. And then we also don't have defensive backs outside of the 2 on the outside, really, or particularly in the slot, that have the size to match up against a quarterback like drones. So ultimately, that was our downfall. Now, what led to it being at that point, that's the question mark I have. Because it clearly wasn't as big of an issue early on in the game. Whether that's something that VT decided that's how they were going to attack our defense after halftime adjustments, or it was something that they just kind of lucked into, or something that we were good at in the first half, but then our mental fatigue set in and we weren't as sound in those decision-making processes. That's the thing to look at. But I don't know what came first. It's a chicken or the egg type of thing.
Yep. I think the bigger question I have here is, at the end of the day, there's like a very interesting subplot with the Wilcox era at Cal, and it reminded me of something that I heard at work where one of our leaders said that when you get to the like VP level, at the end of the day, your core responsibility is hiring more so than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's hiring. And I sort of took that back to think about, the difference between what it's like to be maybe a coordinator versus a head coach. And I think you could make the case that hiring has been a big problem for us. And we keep making these interesting decisions, like having a offensive line coach go to being our offensive coordinator for the first time, or choosing to have co-defensive coordinators. That I find the entire experiment, it just doesn't seem to be working. And I think one of these things, when we go back and like the retro on this era, when should or when that happens, it's one of my biggest questions is, did we hire well enough? Because it certainly felt like we got it right at the beginning. Gerald Alexander was an amazing hire. Tim DeRuyter was an amazing hire. There's others in there, but those are the two that I always remember the most. We thought Bo Baldwin was a bad hire, but he might actually, time may heal that wound pretty generously in his favor compared to all the other offensive coordinators we've had. But like, then there's like these horrendous hires, like the Musgrave hire, and taking all that time to then go out and hire someone that had been out of the game with all that risk. I mean, that was a big miss. And, the Sermon, like bringing in Sermon and then ultimately pissing off Tim DeRuyter enough so that he like decided to leave. Now, Tim DeRuyter doesn't have stops of more than 2 years basically anywhere. So it's hard for me to understand that. But again, was that the right move? Did we ever recapture like the true essence of that, how good that defense was again? I don't think so. And so we've just sort of seen, go back to Spav. What would you say with Spav? I don't know. Good hire, bad hire? Probably bad hire, right? Didn't work out. Had to get rid of him after a year. So I don't know. I think there's a bigger theme here when I look at this defense, and I'm like, man, of all the years to take that risk and to go co-defensive coordinator, you gotta wonder, like, that might be a job-defining decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think, once again, that's a discussion that we're definitely going to have if the regime change is made at the end of the season, when the regime change is made at the end of the season. But, I mean, there's definitely, it's like, it's tough to have, it's easy to have that conversation black and white if you're just looking at the results. I think the nuanced discussion that needs to happen is, did we hire using the right process? And that's going to be the fun conversation to have. Circumstantially, like, were we making the right hires in the right moments? But just they didn't pan out. So we'll talk about that at some point in the future. But for now,
we're moving on. All right. Well, take us home, Rob. What's the last item that you want to talk about before we close the book on Virginia Tech?
Yeah. So the big question I had is, and this is a conversation I had with Avi, and I think we talked about it with you a little bit as well when we were watching the watch party. But it was, would you rather have a good team that's unlucky, or an average to not so good team that is lucky? Because in essence, that's what the difference is between last season and this season, right? I think most people can agree across the board, last year's team was a better team, but was a very, very unlucky team. Versus this year, all the stats kind of point to it, where we're average to slightly below average across the board, but we are a very, very lucky team. and I don't know which I prefer.
Well, I certainly do. I mean, I think that the thing is that I would take some issue with, Rob, is just like the word luck and the choice of the word luck. And there's some people that believe that, I believe in there's some luck, but I don't believe that luck is truly this like determining factor, especially associating in the way of like this team was lucky, this team was unlucky. The team last year had the opportunity to win those games and did not execute. And what they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. We weren't prepared enough and we didn't meet the moment. And but this team feels like it's more a matter of like it's tripped into that success. And so I think that's a little bit more frustrating of an experience, I would say. I think I would rather maybe have the team that goes 7-5, that you're like, that team was legitimate. Like the way I look back on the 2018 team or even the 2017 team. I also look back on the Niners in like the first year under Harbaugh when we lost the Giants in the NFC Championship game. I thought that team was going to win the Super Bowl. I to this day, we whooped the Patriots. So I'm like, in the regular season. So I don't know. I think that like it's hard for me to just isolate down on luck alone. But I do think that I would rather have the team that is more talented, better fundamentally, that is just doesn't get the bounces that go their way versus the one that's like frustrating as hell, but then somehow is like, coming away with a win. Because at the end of the day, it all balances out. If you're just racking up a debt, and the debt is going to come due. And when it comes due, it's going to be much more miserable when you have the worst team. At least that's my experience. Because like I don't think going into that watch party, like I look at this team and was like super fired up about it the same way I would when you have the good team. I'd go, let's say I'm meeting you all out to go watch the game. You have a real belief that you're going to win that game. You have a real belief that we have the talent to do something special. Like there's a ceiling that you can crash or get through there that I don't think you get to when you have that luck. I don't think it affords you that ability to say, well, I did actually see that a bit in the audience there. There are some people that are able to dream with us at 5-2 and say, well, if this happens and this happens and this happens, but it's like, it's really hard for me to believe in it. And I think I would just rather have something that I can believe in, even if it meant that it was going to be slightly more painful of an experience. How about yourself?
Oh, it's funny because the way I view Cal and watching this football team in particular, or the football program in particular, is vastly different from how I consume all of my other professional teams and all the other fandoms that I have. I think I've come to the point in my life with my Cal fandom where I enjoy the highs, but the lows don't hit as hard anymore because I think it's grown further than that, where it's no longer about only the football on the field, but about the friends, the community, the memories that are all associated with this football program. And so, like, I wouldn't necessarily say I prefer one or the other. I think we get such a finite number of Cal football games that for me, it's like every single one is just as important as the next one and just as like impactful, but like it's not detrimental to like my fandom of the program if we luck into a game where I shut my eyes closed and I'm like, oh, we're gonna lose this, aren't we? And then we somehow win it, a la Boston College, or like, oh my God, like we're like, what is happening? How are we winning this game? Type of game, like the North Carolina game or the Minnesota game. So that's kind of where I'm at. And that's the kind of the answer I gave to Avi. I don't know if that's a cop-out answer, but like
kind of.
Yeah, it kind of is, I guess. Yeah, but I've been thinking about this, and I've talked to Avi about this for a few weeks now. Just of like why I was like wondering like why I'm not as downtrodden on the losses as much as I used to be. When we were in our 20s and we were up in that press box. And so maybe that's my thing, is that like I don't really take into it as much of the luck part or like the expectations part of it. But enjoying Cal football for what it is, regardless.
Yeah, I think some of that is probably like gonna go Andy therapist mode.
Yeah.
I think some of it is probably because of the fact that we're older. We
Maybe.
have way more things going on. Two,
Yep.
I think you and I were closer to the success of the program at the beginning of this. So like the Tedford era and the expectations for what Cal could be were way higher in like 2015 and 2016, because like you're only 10 years or less removed. The players are still dominating the NFL. Marshawn's still in the NFL. Rodgers is still playing at an MVP caliber level, though he looks great this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have like that surge of relevance and momentum behind this to say, oh, we just need to get back to what Tedford was able to capture. We're now much further. We're like 20 years, closer to 20 years away from that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's some distance there, which allows me, I don't feel it the same way either, but I actually don't think it's necessarily me growing or caring or somehow. And look, I really love the idea of community. That matters a lot. And that's what I got to see firsthand at Headlands. That was so special. So 1,000% support that. Community and a bigger reason to come together and taking advantage of like just being in the moment and the fact that this group of people, we're not guaranteed to have this. And you and I have been around the Falcon fan community enough to know that like life is fragile, like R.I.P. Larry. And so I believe in that 100%. And at the same time, I think that I worry that we are just able to sort of disregard it easier because we've become more accustomed to that outcome than where you would have if you had been more consistently competitive. And if you're more consistently competitive, do you get more excited, more build up? I think the Miami game is the last game that like really hurt. And that one took me a couple of days to get over. I just don't have those the same way. Notre Dame hurt a lot. I remember that.
Yep.
There's a picture of me staring at the field, wondering, is this what life is all about? But yeah, it's an interesting point. The community piece is huge. But then the question, Rob, becomes, would you feel the same way if we were like winning 2 games a year? And you're like,
yeah, I think, I mean, to your point too, like would my emotions be different if we were on the track to win 9 games this year? Like, if let's say we had gone 8-4 last year and we were like 2 wins away from going to 9-3 this year, like does that reset that expectation and that benchmark standard, where I am feeling more heavily about the losses because of what could have been? We won't know until it happens.
yeah, that is true. Who knows? Maybe we'll go on a run.
The future is uncharted territory, and we'll find out soon enough.
The future is undetermined for all of us.
Yep.
Okay. Well, speaking of the future, ACC standings wise, we are now 2-2. Feels like October might be a bigger sort of ghost. Happy Halloween, everybody, for JW himself. Path to 6-6 probably seems most likely right now. Do you believe that is correct? How do you feel?
I feel like we're going to go 7-5, but that's just me.
Okay, so you're saying there's still a chance for Ace.
I think
if they win the bowl game.
I think the 2 I would probably pin it on is probably Virginia, and then the big game.
Agree. I actually have a hotter take than that, which is I think Virginia is the most winnable. I think everything else is a loss. I'd still stand by. I think we're losing the big game on the road.
Yeah, but once again, that becomes like a coin flip just because you just have to win 1 out of 3 to get to 7-5.
Yep. Yeah, Louisville is not looking good. Not looking good. SMU looking better.
Yeah, after that Wake Forest game.
Yeah, SMU is looking better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our schedule is the most amazing thing. Just the moment that we're like, it's getting hard and it's going to be more challenging. It's like, nah, hold your beer. Virginia looks super beatable. And oh, by the way, SMU plays awful against Wake Forest. Oh my gosh.
It's the entire ACC. Like, I was like, oh crap. Like Florida, Stanford, Stanford might be good because they were it was 7-7 going into halftime.
Yeah.
And then they blew it wide open, and I was like, oh, yeah, well, I'm not as worried anymore.
I know, dude, Stanford's put up good first halves against like a lot of opponents. And I've been like, oh, wow. Like, you know.
But they reverted back to what we expected of them before the game. So I was like, yeah, I'm not worried anymore.
I'm so worried about them long term. It's an off-season pod, but I have expressed my concerns about.
Purely depends on who they hire. Purely depends on who they hire.
No, they have so much money, though. I feel like it's James Franklin. Calling my shot.
We'll find out soon enough.
All right. Take us home.
Well, that's it for us on the Golden Bearcast. If you're listening to us, you already know where to find us, so I don't need to tell you that. You can get all the written stuff over at rightforcalifornia.com, and you can email us, goldenbearcast@gmail.com, or tweet at us at goldenbearcast. I think those are all the big notes. This week's game against Virginia, 12:45 kickoff. There's a bunch of things happening apparently at Oski's Village this week. A lot of performances by student groups and stuff. So please come on by, support. It's kind of what Ron's envisioning for the game day experience at Cal. So being able to at least put our little imprint and show our support in that way, I think is what we can do best if that's all we can do. So,
and I'm gonna be there, and guess what? Eva's gonna be there, and I got my buddy from college coming down. I think to his first Cal game in several years with his daughter.
Lovely.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it's a new 12:45. We'll be out of there by 4:30.
That's what I was gonna say. Kid-friendly time. So good. So good.
Yeah. In the sunshine. So we'll see you all then, folks. And Andy, as always, go Bears.
Go Bears.